The world is not fair, and it never has been. The sooner you accept this brutal truth, the sooner you stop being one of its silent victims. Right now, as you watch this, someone less intelligent than you is commanding more respect. Someone weaker than you is holding more influence. Someone with fewer skills is living the life you want. And do you know why? Because they understand the dark psychology of human nature. You were taught to play by rules that others stopped following a long time ago. You were conditioned to be kind, while others learned to be strategic. You were told to wait for respect, while others were out there taking it. The game has always been rigged, but not in the way you think. It's rigged against those who believe in fairness, against those who think good intentions are enough, against those who confuse humility with weakness. 500 years ago, Niccolò Machiavelli uncovered the real mechanics of power, how kingdoms rise, how empires fall, and why the world rewards those who understand influence over those who rely on virtue. He exposed a truth that polite society still tries to hide. The world doesn't care if you're good. It cares if you're strong. And today, that's exactly what you're about to learn. Not theories, but psychological weapons that will transform how others see you and how you see yourself. Once you see through the illusion of fairness, you can never go back. Once you recognize how human behavior really works, you'll never again play the victim. I remember when this realization hit me. I was that invisible person, intelligent, hardworking, honest, and ignored. I watched manipulative people rise. I watched nice guys fade into the background until I finally understood. The world rewards influence, not innocence. That moment changed everything. This is the awakening that Machiavelli spoke of, the shift from naive observer to conscious strategist. The moment you stop waiting for justice and start creating leverage. Now, before we go deeper into the hidden principles of power, I want you to take a stand right here, right now. Write in the comments, I refuse to be psychologically dominated by others. Don't underestimate this small action. It's not just a comment. It's your declaration of sovereignty. It tells the algorithm, and more importantly, your own mind, that you're ready to stop being a pawn and start becoming a player. And if this message resonates with you, if something inside you is waking up, then do one thing right now. Subscribe, because the next lessons will change how you navigate every relationship, every negotiation, and every moment of your life. Like this video to push this message further, and comment your declaration. Let the world know you're done being controlled. Now that you've made your declaration, let's begin the transformation. Are you ready to become dangerously confident? Here's the first brutal truth. Fairness is a psychological trap. It's one of the most dangerous illusions ever sold to good-hearted people, a comforting lie designed to keep you obedient, while others rewrite the rules of the game. Every time you wait for fair treatment, someone else is taking what you want. Every time you hope for reciprocity, manipulators are studying you, predicting your behavior, and using it to their advantage. Every time you play by imaginary moral rules, others are quietly building empires by breaking them. You've been conditioned to believe that fairness is noble. But in reality, fairness is how the powerful keep you compliant. It's how they convince you that your suffering is virtuous and their success is deserved. Think about it. How many times have you given respect to people who showed you none? How many times have you helped someone who never returned the favor? How many times have you waited patiently for your turn, only to watch others cut the line? Again and again. You tell yourself, it's okay. My time will come. But it never does, because the system isn't designed to reward fairness. It's designed to reward dominance. Niccolò Machiavelli saw this clearly 5 centuries ago. In his ruthless world of betrayal and political intrigue, he wrote, "Men should either be treated generously or destroyed, because they take revenge for slight injuries. For heavy ones they cannot." He wasn't talking about violence. He was talking about psychological warfare, the subtle game of power that happens in every social hierarchy. When you slightly wound someone's ego, they plot revenge. When you completely dominate them, they accept their position and move on. Half measures create enemies. Full dominance creates peace. And this is where most people fail. They give weak pushback to strong personalities. They set soft boundaries with aggressive people. They try to reason with those who operate purely on self-interest. The result? The worst of both worlds. You look weak, and you create enemies who now know exactly how to defeat you. True psychological strength means abandoning the fantasy of fairness and embracing the strategic mindset. You don't argue with those who disrespect you. You demonstrate consequences. You don't plead to be valued. You make it costly for others to underestimate you. Being fair with those who are unfair to you is immorality. It's self-sabotage. So stop expecting fairness from people who only understand power. Stop waiting for reciprocity from those who thrive on your compliance. Start being strategic. Start thinking like someone who understands that the world runs on leverage, not fairness. Now, let's talk about the second principle. Ruthlessness is emotional discipline. Most people misunderstand ruthlessness. They think it means cruelty, arrogance, or rage. But they couldn't be more wrong. True ruthlessness has nothing to do with losing control. It's about mastering control. It's not about emotional explosion. It's about emotional precision. Ruthless people don't get angry. They get strategic. They don't react. They respond. They don't act from wounded feelings. They act from calculated logic. The reason emotionally reactive people never hold power is simple. They're predictable. Anyone who knows which buttons to press can control them. Their emotions become levers in someone else's hands. But emotionally disciplined people, the truly ruthless ones, understand that emotions are data, not directions. They feel the anger, the frustration, the betrayal. But they don't let those emotions choose their behavior. Imagine this. Someone tries to humiliate you publicly, to undermine your reputation. The average person gets defensive, tries to explain, maybe even raises their voice. But that's exactly what the attacker wants. Proof that they control your emotions. Now, picture the ruthless individual. They don't panic. They don't explain. They observe. They analyze. They think, what move will cause the most damage to their standing while strengthening mine? Sometimes they respond with calm, factual precision, turning the attacker into a fool. Sometimes they say nothing, letting silence broadcast their superiority. Sometimes they strike once decisively in a way that ends a conflict permanently. That's emotional sovereignty. That's power. Machiavelli wrote, "Injury should be inflicted all at once, so that they'll savor being less lasting may give less offense." In modern terms, when you must retaliate, make it swift, decisive, and final. Don't argue endlessly. Don't get caught in emotional back and forths. End it once. End it smart. End it in your favor. Think about the most powerful people you know. Not the loud ones, not the bullies, but the calm ones. They don't lose their temper. They don't get dragged into shouting matches. They don't let others dictate their emotional state. Because when you control your emotions, you control every interaction. This is the essence of true ruthlessness. Calm, calculated control under fire. While others react, you respond. While others panic, you plan. While others lose their composure, you build your advantage. Remember this. The world doesn't belong to those who feel the most. It belongs to those who can feel everything and still choose their response. Master your emotions, and you master every game of power. Lose control, and you become just another pawn for those who know how to push your buttons. Fairness will make you naive. Emotional discipline will make you untouchable. And once you've learned to combine both, to reject fairness and embody cold composure, you'll have taken your first real step into psychological sovereignty. Are you starting to see how this game is played? For most of your life, you've been taught to be likable, to be agreeable, to be the person everyone enjoys being around. But here's the truth that few dare to admit. Likability is the comfort zone of the powerless. Being like feels safe, but safety and respect rarely coexist. When people merely like you, they see you as harmless, predictable, forgiving. They assume they can test your limits without consequence. When people respect you, it's different. They measure their words before they speak. They tread carefully because they know your boundaries are real. The world doesn't reward the most likable person in the room. It rewards a person with the strongest presence. That's psychological dominance. Let's destroy a common illusion. Being liked and being respected are not the same thing. Likability is about comfort. Respect is about consequence. When someone likes you, they may still take advantage of you because your goodwill makes you predictable. But when someone respects you, they hesitate. They weigh their choices. They remember the price of crossing you. Niccolò Machiavelli understood this centuries ago when he wrote, "It is much safer to be feared than loved, if one must lack one of the two." He wasn't advocating tyranny. He was revealing a psychological truth. People act more carefully around those they cannot easily manipulate. This isn't about fear in the sense of cruelty. It's about presence. The unspoken awareness that disrespect will always carry a cost. Let's look at how this plays out in daily life. The likable person says yes to requests they don't want to fulfill because they fear disappointing others, accepts small acts of disrespect, and hopes they'll stop on their own, over-explains decisions, searching for validation, constantly tries to maintain harmony, even at their own expense. The psychologically dominant person says no without guilt because they value their time and energy, addresses disrespect immediately, not with anger, but with clarity and firmness, makes decisions and allows others to adapt, prioritizes respect over comfort. This is the shift from pleasing to leading. And here's what most people never realize. When you stop chasing approval, approval starts chasing you. When you carry yourself as someone whose time and attention are valuable, others feel it. They start competing for your recognition. You don't have to demand respect. Your standards naturally command it. Ask yourself, who do people in your life listen to? The nicest person in the group, or the one whose words carry weight? Who do they consult before making decisions? The one who agrees with everyone, or the one whose approval feels meaningful? Exactly. Presence creates authority. Authority creates influence. And influence is the currency of the modern world. But respect alone isn't enough. Respect must be reinforced through decisive action. That brings us to the fourth law of psychological power. Action is the proof of dominance. Weak people destroy their credibility not because they're bad, but because they're inconsistent. They make threats they never enforce. They promise change but never follow through. They set boundaries but allow them to be crossed again and again. Every time you do that, you teach others something very dangerous. My words don't matter. And once your words lose power, your presence collapses. Psychologically dominant people act differently. They speak less, but every word counts. They don't give multiple warnings. They give one, and they mean it. When they say they'll walk away, they do. When they say there will be consequences, there are. It's not about being cruel. It's about creating clarity. When people know your limits are real, they stop testing them. Machiavelli said it best. If an injury has to be done to a man, it should be so severe that his vengeance need not be feared. Translated into modern psychology, when you take action, make it decisive enough that it doesn't have to be repeated. Half measures invite continued disrespect. Whole measures command lasting respect. Let's make it practical. Suppose there's someone in your circle who constantly undermines you, interrupts you, mocks you, talks over you. The weak approach? You ask them politely to stop. You get frustrated when they don't. You complain to others about their behavior. The strong approach? You confront them once, clearly and publicly if necessary. You make it known that disrespecting you is not free. Maybe you withdraw access. Maybe you exclude them from something valuable. Whatever it is, your response is memorable. That one decisive move sends a signal louder than 1,000 polite requests. Disrespect comes with a price. And people remember that. They might not like you for it, but they'll respect you for it. Because here's the paradox. The moment you stop caring whether people like you is the moment they start admiring you. Confidence is magnetic. Boundaries are attractive. Consistency is power. This principle doesn't just apply to conflicts. It applies to everything. Your career, your relationships, your self-image. Don't try to convince others of your value. Demonstrate it through bold, deliberate action. Don't beg to be included. Let your absence speak for itself. Don't seek validation. Become the person whose validation others crave. When you live this way, something extraordinary happens. People begin to adjust themselves around you. Your presence shapes their behavior. Your silence carries meaning. Your decisions ripple through their world. That's not arrogance. That's influence. The kind that can't be faked, the kind that doesn't fade, the kind that commands respect long after you've left the room. So stop trying to be liked. Stop giving second, third, and fourth chances. Stop over-explaining yourself. From now on, let your decisions do the talking. Because in the end, power doesn't come from being understood. It comes from being undeniable. When you embrace this truth, you'll stop chasing approval and start embodying authority. And that's the moment people stop overlooking you and start orbiting around you. Here's a hard truth most people never realize until it's too late. Your image is your reality. In the psychological battlefield of human interaction, perception always outranks truth. It doesn't matter how good you are, how intelligent, how virtuous. If people perceive you as weak, uncertain, or replaceable, that perception becomes your reality in their minds. Human beings are not truth seekers. They're shortcut seekers. They don't take the time to investigate who you truly are. They judge you instantly, subconsciously, and almost always based on appearance, tone, and confidence. And once that judgment forms, it becomes almost impossible to change. This is why perception management is not manipulation, it's self-defense. Machiavelli understood this centuries ago when he wrote, "Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few experience what you really are." That sentence should be burned into your mind. Because in a world that runs on impressions, appearance is currency. People don't treat you based on your intentions. They treat you based on the image you project. If you don't define that image, others will, and they'll define it in ways that serve them, not you. Most good people make this fatal mistake. They assume that being authentic means doing nothing to shape how they're perceived. They think if they just work hard, if they just stay kind and humble, others will notice and reward them. But that's not how the human mind works. Perception creates opportunity. Perception attracts loyalty. Perception commands respect. So the question isn't, who are you really? The question is, who do people think you are? That's the difference between being good and being powerful. Let's talk about how perception management works in practice. When you walk into a room, before you even speak, people are already forming judgments about your confidence, competence, and authority, all based on your posture, your eye contact, your facial expression, and your energy. You could be the most talented person there, but if your shoulders are slumped, your voice is weak, and your presence is hesitant, no one will perceive your value. But if you carry yourself with stillness, with calm self-assurance, with the weight of someone who doesn't need validation, people feel that. They can't explain it, but they sense it. That psychological gravity, the pull of presence that makes others subconsciously treat you as important. Your voice tone communicates confidence or insecurity long before your words do. Your clothing signals your self-respect and your status in the tribe. Your body language reveals whether you're in control of yourself or begging for permission to exist. Perception management means mastering all of these unspoken signals, not to impress, but to project authority. Now, you may ask, but isn't that fake? No, it's strategic authenticity. It's not about pretending to be someone else. It's about presenting the best, strongest version of who you already are. If you've ever prepared for a job interview, chosen your clothes carefully, or rehearsed what to say, congratulations. You've already managed perception. You just haven't done it consciously and consistently. The psychologically dominant understand this. Your public image must be crafted with intention. They carefully choose what stories about themselves to share. They reveal just enough to create curiosity, never so much that they lose mystery. They highlight their victories, minimize their failures, and let others fill in the blanks with positive assumptions. Because here's another truth of human nature. When people don't know everything about you, they imagine the best possible version. Mystery amplifies perception. Overexposure kills it. So, if you want to command respect, show less, say less, leave room for imagination. But there's an even higher level of psychological influence, and that's narrative control. Narrative control is not just about how people see you. It's about how people interpret you. It's about controlling not just what happens, but what your actions mean. Two people can do the exact same thing, but one is praised for leadership while the other is condemned for arrogance. The difference? Narrative. The person who controls the story controls the truth. Every human mind needs to create meaning. Every event, every behavior, every conflict. We all look for a story to explain it. And the person who defines that story first wins. Machiavelli wrote, "Men in general judge more from appearances than from reality. All men have eyes, but few have the gift of penetration." Translation. Facts matter less than the version of events people believe. This means you must become a storyteller of your own life. When you make a difficult decision, don't let others define it as selfish. Define it as principled. When you fail, don't let others label it as weakness. Frame it as learning. When you succeed, don't let them call it luck. Present it as strategy. Here's an example. You decide to distance yourself from a friend who constantly drains your energy. They might tell others that you're cold, that you abandon them. If you stay silent, that narrative takes root. But if you calmly state your version, "I had to set healthy boundaries with someone who refused to respect them," suddenly you're not heartless. You're self-respecting. Same action. Two stories. Two realities. That's the essence of narrative warfare. You frame your actions before others can frame them for you. Think about it like this. Every day, people are creating micro-narratives about you. At work, in your family, online. If you don't actively shape those stories, you're surrendering control of your reputation to people who may not have your best interests at heart. So start asking yourself this question before every major action. How will this be interpreted? And then take control of the interpretation. If you anticipate criticism, address it before it begins. If you know an action could be misread, reframe it publicly before your enemies do it privately. Control the narrative early, clearly, and confidently, and watch how quickly public opinion bends in your favor. This is what I call psychological framing power, the ability to dictate meaning, because meaning shapes memory, and memory shapes influence. In time, it's not the facts that define your legacy. It's the story told about those facts. When you master both perception and narrative, you no longer react to how others see you. You engineer it. You no longer worry about your reputation. You design it. That's how leaders rise. That's how strategists maintain power without shouting for it. So, remember this law of human psychology. People don't live in reality. They live in perception. And whoever controls that perception controls everything. We've reached the highest level of psychological mastery, the point where influence no longer depends on emotion, persuasion, or reaction, but on something far more powerful: systems. A system is the invisible architecture of authority. It's the structure that determines how others treat you, without you ever needing to raise your voice or issue a threat. Most people rely on emotional reactions to maintain boundaries. They get angry, withdraw, or argue when someone crosses a line. But emotion-based control is weak because it depends on your energy. You have to keep reinforcing it. Psychological authority, on the other hand, is self-sustaining. It doesn't rely on emotion. It relies on cause and effect. Niccolò Machiavelli understood this principle when he wrote, "A wise ruler should rely on what is in his own control, not on what is in control of others." When your power depends on how others behave, you are never truly in control. But when your systems create automatic consequences, your authority becomes unshakable. Think about it. When a person respects your time, they get access to more of it. When they disrespect it, they lose access. No speeches, no drama, no emotion. Just natural law. This is the essence of systematic consequences. Instead of begging for respect, you design your environment so that respect is rewarded and disrespect is punished automatically. Let's make it practical. Imagine you have friends who constantly cancel plans or show up late. The emotionally reactive person gets angry, argues, maybe sends long messages expressing disappointment. But this gives the offenders power. They've succeeded in controlling your emotions. The psychologically disciplined person doesn't argue. They simply stop inviting those friends. Quietly. No announcement, no explanation. Next time those friends ask, you're suddenly busy. They feel the change, but you never had to say a word. That's system-based authority. You've just trained their behavior without a single confrontation. It's the same with business, relationships, and family. You don't have to explain your standards repeatedly. You enforce them through systems. For example, you don't chase clients who ignore your boundaries. You prioritize those who respect them. You don't keep helping people who drain your energy. You direct your generosity toward those who value it. You don't argue for appreciation. You make your attention something people earn, not something they expect. Over time, people start to understand the rule. Your respect is transactional. They begin to self-correct, not because you demand it, but because they fear losing your access, your presence, your value. This is what real power looks like. Quiet, predictable, unshakable. It's not about domination. It's about discipline. When your consequences are consistent, people stop testing you. When your systems are clear, people learn the pattern. And when your boundaries enforce themselves, you gain something rare in today's chaotic world: emotional peace. Because here's the ultimate paradox. The more systematic your authority, the less you have to use it. You don't have to threaten. You don't have to punish. People simply learn. That's the beauty of psychological design. Once established, it runs on autopilot. And once your systems are in place, you can begin mastering the final form of power: silent dominance. The truly powerful don't advertise their strength. They don't need to. Their influence moves beneath the surface, invisible but undeniable. Silent dominance is the art of letting your results, your presence, and your precision speak louder than any display of strength ever could. It's the fusion of the fox and the lion that Machiavelli described. The lion cannot protect himself from traps, and the fox cannot defend himself from wolves. One must therefore be a fox to recognize traps, and a lion to frighten wolves. You must be both, cunning enough to avoid traps and strong enough to end threats when necessary. But the highest mastery lies in never showing your claws until it's too late for anyone to stop you. Silent dominance means you plan quietly. Others only notice your success after it's already secured. You gather information while revealing almost nothing about yourself. You form alliances strategically, not emotionally, and no one fully understands your network until it's already benefiting you. You observe your enemies without reacting, waiting until the perfect moment to shift the entire balance of power with one decisive move. The loudest person in the room is almost never the most powerful. Noise is a signal of insecurity. Silence is a signal of control. Think of the most commanding people you've ever met. They rarely speak about what they're going to do. They simply do it. And by the time others realize what's happening, the game has already changed. That's the essence of psychological sovereignty. Power that doesn't need to prove itself. Confidence that doesn't need validation. Presence that doesn't need permission. And here's the truth most will never accept. The world is already being shaped by those who understand these rules. While the naive wait for fairness, the strategic design systems. While the emotional react, the discipline remains silent and move pieces behind the scenes. So ask yourself this: are you living by your own system, or are you a piece in someone else's? Are you enforcing consequences, or suffering from the lack of them? Are you controlling the narrative of your life, or being written out of it by others? Because whether you realize it or not, the game is always being played. The only question is, are you the one moving the pieces or the one being moved? If you want to stop being controlled, stop living reactively, build systems, enforce consequences, embrace silence. Because silence isn't weakness. It's the echo of mastery. And the day you master these principles, you'll no longer need to demand respect. You'll simply command it without saying a word.